are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again today. We have a special topic for y'all today. We're going to focus on today's topic, how processed foods can be a hidden barrier to finding your purpose. And we have a perfect guest for that. We have Dr. Joan Ifland, and she has an amazing website you can be checking out. It is processedfoodaddiction.com. We're going to learn everything about her and how she is a leading voice in processed food addiction and how you can really have a one-stop shop for this best service and products to overcome processed food addiction. Without further ado, I want to welcome Ms. Dr. Ifland to the show. So how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being here.
Well, I appreciate you being here because I know your schedule's super tight. So I know you cleared a little time for us. So I appreciate you doing that for us today. Kind of tell us a little bit about your passion being a doctor and what inspires you to choose that career.
Well, I was raised by two ragers, people who were emotionally unstable. And I was raising my own two children and wanting very much to be emotionally stable and not able to. Like I would just start yelling, and it was kind of an out-of-body experience. So I was doing a lot of things to try to make it stop. I was doing therapy, and I was going to church, and I was in 12-step groups, and I was in a big deal women's healing group. Nothing helped. So lo and behold, I was also yo-yo dieting, and I got to the point where I couldn't restrict calories anymore. I was just too hungry all the time. So somebody told me about a food plan that eliminated sugars and flours. So great. I started it January 1996. And within 4 days, like these incredible things were happening. All I had done was eliminate sugars and flours, and my cravings went away. Cravings that I'd had since in my whole memory. I didn't know they weren't normal. And the bloating stopped, and the brain fog stopped, and the fatigue stopped, and I could think clearly. There was a lot of food on the food plan. It wasn't calorie restriction at all. I thought, well, I'm never going to lose weight on this. But at the end of that week, I'd lost 2 pounds. And the next week, and the next week. And I was never hungry and not craving. Well, the second week, my lifelong sinus infection went away, and my allergies got much, much better. But it was in the third week when I realized I hadn't yelled at anybody since I'd started this food plan. I hadn't lost my temper. I had regulated my emotions. I had this nice, steady behavior that I'd always wanted. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. This is about the food. Well, I had joined, that was my second 12-step group. So I went to the meeting that weekend. It was before the internet. I couldn't just run to the internet and find out about this. And I asked, do people get less irritable on this food plan? And everybody said, yeah. I thought, dang, all those years of therapy and the women's groups, and none of it was on target. Yes, I had a very traumatic childhood, but that was not the immediate cause of my unstable behavior. It was the processed foods. So I committed in that moment to help as many people as I possibly could get awareness that processed foods cause mood disorders and behavior disorders, as well as a whole range of physical and mental disorders. And that was 27 and a half years ago. And since then, I've written a popular book. I've earned a PhD in addictive nutrition. I've written numerous papers and chapters for other people, and I had a prepared meal business, which was not the issue. But finally, a textbook company asked me to write the textbook for the field. I did that for 3 years, full time, and realized that this is common people have been given this addiction to processed foods by the tobacco companies. So when tobacco came in and bought Kraft, Nabisco, and General Foods in the mid-1980s, well, all you have to do is ask yourself, well, why would somebody who makes their money by addiction, by creating these intense, overwhelming cravings for a worthless, damaging product, why would people who are good at that business model, why would they move into processed foods? And you can see immediately what happened. This is the same business model. So I have an MBA in my background as well. And this is a business model. It's the addiction business model. It's hiding addictive substances in a seemingly innocent product and then spinning value to that product, like they did with cigarettes. Cigarettes are worthless. They don't do one good thing for a person, but they spun this value around them. Oh, they're sexy. Oh, they're rebellious. Oh, they're masculine. And people bought them for the fictitious values and then died. So that's what they did with processed foods. Oh, processed foods are delicious. Oh, processed foods are fun. Oh, processed foods are convenient. They're none of those things. And people are dying from it. But they hid extra nicotine in the cigarettes, and they hid extra sugar, fat, salt in processed foods. And people used them. They issued coupons for them, so you would use them enough to actually develop the addiction. They put in these big family packs of these addictive substances, and people became addicted. And now 1.6 million Americans will die from diet-related diseases every year. It worked. It worked tragically well. But as you can hear from what I'm saying, this is not your fault. You were given an addiction. People were given smoking, cravings for tobacco. And now we have these intense cravings for processed foods. And it's killing us.
You have on your website, processedfoodaddiction.com, you have a processed food addiction self-quiz. Share with the audience a little bit about this quiz and how this can be an eye-opener for them.
Oh, that's such a good question. Thank you. So there are 11 diagnostic criteria for addictions. So 11 signs, if you will. And if you're thinking, gosh, I bet those darn tobacco executives gave me these intense cravings for processed foods. So how would you know? You can take the self-quiz for the signs. It's not a diagnosis, but you can get a feel for what's been done to you. And those 11 criteria, and if you guys want to just tick this off on your fingers, if you have 6 or more of these, then it's considered to be a severe addiction. And that's what floored me in the textbook. I could see by my research that most people have 6 or more of these. So if you like, I'll just run down them real quick.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So the first one is unintended use, where you have a plan to not consume processed foods, and then you consume them. You open a package, you're going to have one, but then the package is gone. Or you're going to drive straight home from work and not stop, but your car drives itself into fast food or a convenience store. Or you're going to eat good today, and by 10 o'clock, the vending machine has trapped you and you're in front of the vending machine. So that's number 1, unintended use. Number 2, failure to cut back. So 83% of Americans are obese, severely obese, or overweight. And a lot of them are dieting at any given time, but it doesn't work. Or the weight comes back. The weight comes back within 3 years in almost 100% of cases. So that also is not your fault, the weight gain and the weight return. Number 3, time spent. So people are driving to fast food, and they are stopping at convenience stores, and they are eating these things that get into their house and then falling asleep. So it's very time consuming, but also the time spent thinking about, planning, and recovering from consuming they're numbing substances. Number 4 is cravings. And cravings correlate with BMI, body mass index. So that 83% of the country that's overweight or obese, they have cravings. Number 5 is failure to fulfill roles. So you might be too big to get down on the floor with your kids anymore, but you're still eating. Or you're not going to apply for that promotion because you are depressed or discouraged, but you're still eating. Or you've been told to, well, no, that's just failure to fulfill roles. You're going to drop out of school because your brain fog is so severe and your cravings are so severe that you can't do the schoolwork. All right, the next one, we're on 6, is relationship problems. You can't focus on another person because the cravings are so intense. The brain fog is so intense. And you just want people to go away so that you can eat whatever it is. And shame is a big part of this. And you don't want anybody to see you eating. Now, more than half of American adults live by themselves. And I think this is a factor in that decision. Or somebody's trying to get you to lose weight or stop eating it, and you can't. The next one is activities given up. So you used to go bowling, or you used to go to church, or you used to volunteer, but now you're too sick, you're too big, or you're too tired, or you're too ashamed, or you don't want anybody to see you, and you don't want to go because you're not sure you'll have control over your food if you get there. And so you go home instead. And that's activities given up. And then number 9 is hazardous use. So people think, oh, that's drunk driving. No, it can be driving down the road, driving with your elbow because you're eating the fast foods. So eating in the car used to be the number 1 distraction in driving. And now it's texting and eating is number 2. So you can have hazardous use. You can lose your balance. Your weight distribution can be such that you trip, you're prone to falling, but you're still eating. And that's not your fault, but that's a sign of hazardous use. Then you have use in spite of knowledge of consequences. 93% of the country has high triglycerides, high cholesterol, high blood glucose, high blood pressure, or a high waist to hip ratio. And we're still eating. The next criteria is called tolerance or progression. And you can see this across the entire US population. The percentage of processed foods people are eating keeps creeping up year after year. We are to the point where we are eating 73% of our food in processed foods. That's more than 10 years ago. So you can see everybody is suffering from using more and more over time. And then the last one is the withdrawal syndrome. And when people get off of processed foods, particularly sugars and flours, and they develop headaches and lethargy and irritability and stomach aches and joint pain. And this is withdrawal. It's not random. If you stop eating it and you develop any of those things, then that's withdrawal. Or if you're eating for reasons other than hunger, then you're eating to avoid withdrawal. Yeah.
Once again, listen to Refocused Radio, talking to our guest, Joan Ifland, and you can go to our website, processedfoodaddiction.com. And I have to ask this question because I feel like processed food can be something that affects all ages. So it may not necessarily be a situation where the person is overweight. They can be skinny and still eating a ton of processed food that can be affecting their health in that such a good way. With your research, is it easier for a person to get in a group setting for accountability, or is this something that someone can do individually if they have the right knowledge?
Oh my gosh, your questions are so excellent. Yeah, do not try this on your own. Do not try this alone. Even trying it with one other person is dicey, because people have an urge to be in a group, to do what the group is doing. If you're surrounded by people who are eating processed foods, which is very likely, Americans eating 73% of their food in processed foods, the likelihood that you are around people who are eating processed foods is extremely high. It would be rare for you to be in a social circle that doesn't eat processed foods. People sometimes think they're not eating processed foods, but they are. So that is why I founded my online community. It's called the Addiction Reset Community. And if you are thinking, wow, I would like to get this craving, this intense, crazy cravings out of my head, I would say that the research says you got to do it in a group, because we are very group oriented as humans. We needed to survive in a group. Whether you're a creationist or an evolutionist, your framework is group. My group is everything. My tribe is everything. My beliefs are everything. I am in a group where I belong, where I am normal. And your brain will not let you be abnormal for any length of time. Even after a year of eating clean, people report that they've relapsed. Well, why? Because their brain said, you've got to be normal, and the people around you are eating processed foods. So once I made that discovery, that is a driving force in people's eating behavior, then I knew I had to have an online community where people could feel normal not eating processed foods. And so we broadcast 15 hours a day in blocks around the clock. We have teams in across the Americas. We have a team in Australia. We have a team in South Africa and in Europe and in the UK. So these teams pick up a block of broadcasting over Zoom, 4 or 5 hours, 7 or 8 hours at a time. And then there are breaks in between, so that you can open up your phone or any device that gets on Zoom, your computer, your laptop, your tablet, and you can feel normal by joining into one of our discussion groups. You can feel normal about not eating processed foods. The other thing at this point is that if you're not sick, you're not normal. I mean, you've got 93% of the country who are sick from these substances. And they're all talking about their medications and their doctor visits and their surgeries and so on. So if you're like 100% healthy, you don't fit in anymore. And that your brain will not like that. It will drag you over to eating the processed foods and gaining weight and being unhealthy rather than have you be abnormal. So you got to be in a community. You have to be surrounded by people who are eating like you eat in order to feel normal and stick with it. It's not your fault when you fall off or you eat something you're not supposed to be eating. It's because the people around you are doing that, and your survival brain is saying you must do that too. There's something you have to remember about humans is we don't have fangs. We don't have claws. We cannot defend ourselves as individuals. We have groups. So if a predator is facing a group of 5 people with spears or clubs or rocks, they'll turn around and go away. But a single person, no, the predator will win and the person will die. So we cling to our groups very tightly. We only feel safe when we're in a group. And that's just, whether you're evolution or whether you're a creationist, that is the framework. You're in a group to be okay.
Once again, you've been listening to Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, Dr. Joan Ifland. And you can go to her website. It's processfoodaddiction.com. And with the time being up already, it seemed like we just started like 2 minutes ago. Someone wants to learn more about some of the free resources you have. I saw on your website there are some sections where people can have access to some free resources. What's the best call to action that you want to give for our audience?
Go to processfoodaddiction.com and take the self-quiz, or sign up for our free information. And we'll have your email address and we'll be in touch with you. You'll get more and more information about why this is not your fault.
Some great information, and I want to say thank you for your expertise on the show, sharing with us and our listeners. I want to say thank you for your time.
Thank you. Take care.